This episode of the podcast is again sponsored by OneSkin. That's become part of my morning routine. I'm trying to look a little less like an old leathery couch. At the core of OneSkin is their patented OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to target senescent cells, the root cause of wrinkles, crepiness, and the loss of elasticity. And I don't know anything about that, but it does make my skin feel good. Certified safe for sensitive skin, OneSkin products are free from over 1,500 harsh or irritating ingredients, dermatologist tested, and have been awarded the National Eczema Association Seal of Acceptance by the NEA, delivering powerful results without irritation. Born from over 10 years of longevity research, OneSkin's OS1 peptide is proven to target the cells that cause the visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. And for a limited time, OneSkin is making it even easier to stay consistent with up to 30% off your first 3 subscription orders when you use the code TRAVELER at oneskin.co/traveler. That's 30% off with code TRAVELER. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. And thanks to OneSkin for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
This episode is brought to you by FX's The Beauty Official Podcast. Join host Evan Ross Katz on the official podcast for FX's hottest new series, The Beauty, taking you behind the scenes with its amazing stars as they discuss the show's most jaw-dropping moments. Featuring Evan Peters, Anthony Ramos, Jeremy Pope, Ashton Kutcher, Rebecca Hall, Bella Hadid, Meghan Trainor, Isabella Rossellini, Jessica Alexander, and Ari Grainer. Search FX's The Beauty wherever you listen to podcasts.
Amateur Traveler, episode 980. Today, Amateur Traveler talks about Roman ruins, a Carthaginian port, and an Arab souk as we go to Tunis, the capital of Tunisia. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Tunis. I'd like to welcome back to the show Jeff Ohlfs, perennial guest on Amateur Traveler, former National Park Ranger and World Traveler, who has come to talk to us this time about Tunis. Jeff, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Always happy to be chatting about the world with you somewhere.
And what is your connection with Tunis?
I vacationed there a year ago and had an enjoyable time. So I know that you haven't had an episode, at least on Tunisia, since 2008. I think it was episode 132,
Yep.
where we talked about the whole country and, of course, emphasis on Star Wars there. My particular trip was less than a week, but several days in the actual capital of Tunis and just a little bit to the south.
Excellent. And why should someone go to Tunis?
I don't think a lot of people think too much about traveling to Tunis/Tunisia. It's an incredible country,
Yeah.
friendly people. It's an Arab country and all that goes with it. And it's reasonably inexpensive. And it's just right there off the boot of Italy. I actually flew from there to Malta and did Malta. And it's close to several other attractions.
Excellent. And what itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
It's 3 days, and you can certainly spend longer. I think in the past, everybody knows I'm probably into history and the national parks, so that was my emphasis. Day one is basically going to be around the ancient ruins of Carthage, the American military cemetery there, and then a really wonderful little neighborhood on a peninsula called Sidi Bou Said, which we'll talk about. And then next day you can spend downtown Tunis. One of the main attractions is the Bardo Museum, and of course the Medina. Oh, the Medina is something else. And then the last day was taking a tour down to another World Heritage Site called El Jim, and I poked my head at Bukharan National Park.
Okay.
People don't realize that Tunis is the capital of Tunisia. It's an Arab country, as I said. It was mainly ethnic Berbers that were there. It's definitely an arid country, so not unfamiliar to me here in the Southern California desert. Wonderful people. They primarily speak French, although Arabic is the official language.
Oh.
They received their independence from France in 1956. And you can fly into 2 airports, the Carthage International Airport. I flew in there from Frankfurt. But they also have an international airport to the south. And I'm going to slaughter some of these Arabic words, but Infida Hammamet International Airport. And apparently you can get flights into that from various European cities. which I did not know. So I'm not sure if one is cheaper than the other, but people have options. I went ahead, I don't know how many people, I use a group called Tours by Locals. And
Yeah.
I've been really successful with that in a few of my trips. As a solo traveler, I'll pick the location and select a guide. And I was incredibly lucky to get Nuruddin Bukhari, who was my driver and guide for the 3 days that I was there. You could rent a car and drive around, but I don't know, it's just so much easier having him. And everybody knows him. He knows everybody. There's nothing that can't be taken care of. Friendly as all get out, knowledgeable. He lived for a while in the U.S., so his English was excellent. I highly recommend him. Tours by Locals. I've used it several times and always been successful.
Yeah, we've talked about them on the show before, but I think it's been a while since we've brought up that website.
Yeah. I was talking with them and helping doing the planning, which they're very helpful with too. He suggested a place for me to stay at, so I'll just go ahead. And I stayed all my nights at this one little, I guess you could call it a bed and breakfast. It's called Dar Enissim Hotel, and that's Ennassim Hotel in La Marsala. It's a community just north of Carthage. And just to put on a map too, Carthage is due east, probably about 15 minutes or so from Tunis. So just north of that is this community of La Marsala. Beautiful boutique hotel with breakfast included. It's owned by locals. I think it was Taib and his mother, Sonia. The one caution I have on it is they only take cash.
Okay.
Keep that in mind.
Now, I'm seeing you can book it online as well.
Yeah, you can, but I ended up, for some reason, I just made the reservation and paid when I got there. Of course, it took me a bit that they didn't take credit cards, so I had to scramble for some cash. But yeah, it was definitely well worth it. Because they knew my guide, I was actually upgraded to what we might call the penthouse suite, which is 4 stories
Very
up,
nice.
no elevator, but the best views of the city, the ocean breeze, and sunset you'll have. Reminding me of a place I stayed at in Zanzibar many years ago. And he carried my 50 pounds of luggage up 4 flights. I was on my way to a conference, so I had a couple extra suitcases full of stuff for that. But just a wonderful place, beautiful breakfast in the morning. And I'll swing back to them because they've got attraction associated with their hotel.
And you say that it is in Carthage, and that, of course, is a name with a lot of meaning to those of us who are history buffs, because we're talking about the ancient city of Carthage, the capital of the Carthaginian Empire or the Phoenician Empire, the rival to Rome as Rome was rising. So that's the Carthage we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Carthage itself, of course, is a World Heritage Site. And like you said, it's an old ancient Phoenician city. It means new city or new town. I think the first Carthage was founded about 814 BC. And before Rome became Rome, Carthage was probably the most powerful city in the region because of its proximity to the trade routes. It's in an impressive harbor in the Gulf of Tunis, which is off the Mediterranean. At its height of power, it was the center of the Phoenician trade network. And at one time, it was the richest city in the entire Mediterranean. It was just full of wealthy people and boasted one harbor containing over 200 docks.
Well, and if for those people who aren't aware of what area we're talking about, their empire went from Spain to the Middle East, all the way across North Africa, and then also Sicily and some of the other islands.
Yep. And as Rome grew in power and wanted to expand, they obviously came into conflict. So there was a rivalry which erupted into 3, what they call the Punic Wars, which were fought both on land and sea. Carthage did not fare well in those Punic Wars. In the first 2, the city suffered some degree of destruction. The first war, they lost the island of Sicily and ceded other territory after the defeat in the second war. And then during the third Punic War, Rome returned and laid siege to the city again. And it took 3 years, but Carthage finally fell and it was burned to the ground by the Romans. And those 3 wars were fought over a span of about 100 years. And then Julius Caesar came in and actually reestablished Carthage as a Roman colony. So after several decades...
I did not know that. Okay.
Carthage became one of Rome's most important colonies, as you'll see as we talk about it going through here, because there's a lot of Roman ruins. And Carthage itself, as I said, is a World Heritage Site. And they're all managed together, but they're separate by several miles. It's not like you park at a gate and walk in and there's different features throughout Carthage.
Okay.
And I'll just go over some of them that you're going to see. One, which I thought was interesting, was the Roman theater. It is still actually used as an outdoor entertainment venue. And they're setting up a performance when we were there. Then that's not to be confused with the Roman Colosseum, which is where you would think of gladiators and things like that. The Roman Colosseum here is known specifically, or at least infamous, for the beheading of Saints Perpetua and Felicity. They were beheaded here on a column that still stands to this day on the side above the pit where the Christians were imprisoned. So there's some history on that. Naturally, being Roman, there's Roman baths. I don't know if I want to use the word ancient, but the older portion is the Punic Acropolis from the early Punic days. And those ruins and foundations are another site to visit. And it's adjacent to what used to be the Catholic St. Louis Cathedral. And so a bit of a side note here, France's King Louis was a crusader who launched the Eighth Crusade in about late 1200s. And he and his army landed in Carthage. And he eventually fell to a fatal disease. I think it was probably dysentery, and died a few weeks after getting there. So the location of his death, they commemorated it with a large Catholic cathedral. And although his body was eventually returned to France, and it is still there. It's adjacent to probably the oldest ruins of Carthage, dating back to its earliest days, but it's no longer a church. So you got this history of the Punics, AD, and then you got this former Catholic cathedral, on the same lot, basically. One of the more interesting places for me was what's called the Punic Port. And this is where the harbor was, but it was a built harbor. You entered the harbor, and the first section of the harbor was for the merchants, the commercial area. Then you went through a little narrow passage, and you entered this lake that was made. And basically, in its heyday, it was, most people know, what could visualize a train roundhouse. So around the perimeter and the center island of this were docks for the military ships. It would make it look like it was a roundhouse. And really, it's still there. The remains of it's still there. And that just, I don't know, that's just so fast. When you're up at the cathedral and looking down, you can see it. And wow, that's very impressive. Not too far from port and the harbor, and you can walk around all these places. And like I said, one ticket will get you into all of them. Is, I don't want to say weird, but uncomfortable. It's called the Tophet Cemetery, and I may be pronouncing that wrong, Tophet. Basically 20,000 stone urns containing infants that were sacrificed and cremated to the Punic god Baal. So it's basically a cemetery with all these urns above ground, or small stone caskets, for lack of a better term. And the crematorium was used to do that. You can walk through it, you can see the crematorium, the ruins of it. It's a sad thing. 20,000, just, gosh. And the final thing connected with the World Heritage Site area, of course, is the Roman aqueduct. And as we stated, Tunisia is an arid country. And they got an aqueduct that runs 82 miles from the mountains to Carthage, which helped supply the fresh water to the city, the ancient city. Also in the immediate vicinity, if you're back at the Roman baths, if you look up above you on the bluff there, overlooking the bay, is the presidential palace, or as it's known, the Carthage Palace. And that's where the Tunisian president has lived there. It was built in about 43 and has lived there ever since. And you can look up and see the grounds, and can't get up there, but it's right there. Progressing a little bit outside the World Heritage Site, just a little bit, at least for Americans anyway, is the North African American Military Cemetery. This is not unlike any of the ones you would see in I think Anzio, Normandy, any other places that we have our military cemetery on foreign grounds. This one contains the graves of over 2,800 of our soldiers. And today being Veterans Day that we're talking about this, it seems appropriate to remember them. From the World War
Yeah.
II North African campaign, it's a typical, the crosses, the Star of David, all that. But they have some other interesting features to this is there's these tablets that contain over 3,700 names on them, those that are missing in action from this campaign. And all branches of service, including some from the United States Coast Guard. So basically, they're stone tablets with their names engraved. And if you happen to see a rosette next to that name, it means that the body has since been recovered and identified. Adjacent to that memorial wall is a memorial court, and it has mosaic maps, and we'll get to mosaics here in a little bit, but it's a mosaic maps of the campaign. So you can see the broader, they have a couple of them, the overall North Africa, then the Tunis, and it's all done in mosaic showing where the different military units advanced towards. And there's also a empty sepulcher in the middle of this, which is to represent the tomb of the missing. My wife's uncle survived this campaign as part of the U.S. Army's Second Corps. So it was fitting that I stopped there and pay tribute and remember Uncle Jim. The cemetery's office, make sure you go in there. It's just a little bit of a building. Most people, probably think of it as a gardener's shed, or it's not even open, but go inside, and they're actually in the process of building a whole new office there. But they've got historic photos from the campaign. On one of the walls have a memorial to the Tuskegee Airmen who went missing in action in this campaign.
Oh, okay. I'd forgotten they were based in Tunisia and then escorting bombers up into Germany.
Yeah, that surprised me to see that, having been to Tuskegee and stuff like that. I was like, oh, immediately popped to my attention.
For those not familiar with the Africa campaign that the U.S. was in, the movie Patton covers it in the first part of the movie because he was in charge of the Second Corps there for a while.
Yeah, and they trained out here in the Southern California desert. Many of Patton's camps and training sites for that invasion, which was actually another connection. So just to give a little time, you're going to spend most of the morning in ancient Carthage in the ruins there. The cemetery, depending on your interest, maybe an hour and a half. It's not terribly huge. It's in the town of Carthage itself, so you don't have too far to travel.
One of the reasons the American cemeteries are often smaller than the Allied cemeteries in World War II and also in World War I is that the families of the soldiers who died were given the option of having their bodies returned to the U.S., where that wasn't the case, for instance, if you were a UK soldier or something like that.
We always bring ours home if we can, as they say. And most people don't realize that it's not like an embassy. It's not American soil. It's the soil of the country. The land belongs to Tunisia. We just are given a free lease on the land, so to speak, to maintain the cemetery as long as we maintain it. So after a stop there, we're going to head out to the peninsula a little bit. It's not that far away, to this Tunisian community of, and I'm hoping I'm saying it right, Sadi Bou Said. I can't believe you probably haven't seen photos of this little town, and it's a walkable town. They're whitewashed Tunisian village with blue outlines around the trim of the doors and the windows and mirror.
Okay.
It's really quaint. It's Sidibou Said. I know it was talked about in your first thing. It's a great little place just to spend the rest of your afternoon walking through. You got the breeze coming in off the bay. The village was named after a Muslim cleric called Abu Said, and he's buried in the mosque there in town. Now, there's a museum there.
It looks almost like a Greek town or Chefchaouen in Morocco. Very picturesque.
Yeah, it is. You know, when you have these whitewashed buildings, which you'll actually see pretty much throughout Tunisia. But for some reason, with that blue trim and everything else, it just stands out. There's lots of little shops, restaurants. There's a museum there called Dar El Anabi, Annabi. And this museum is actually owned by the family that owns the B&B I was staying at. So as a guest at the B&B, I had free access to the museum. The museum is basically a Tunisian home, a family home that's been preserved in the local style. And
Oh,
I can't
interesting. Okay.
think that they weren't extremely wealthy merchants. So
Yeah.
there's all sorts of exhibits inside of here. It's multi-level, multi-stories. You come in, there's the living room, there's their offices, and they have mannequins in the local attire. There's the kitchen with the
Okay.
implements on that. They've got a library. This place even has its own mosque, part of the residence. It's very
Oh,
unique
wow. Okay.
to come in and see it. All the different types of furniture, the carpets, the attire, and all. And then you go upstairs to the bedrooms and the kitchen and stuff like that. So it's well worth a visit to explore that. And like I say, if you happen to be staying at the B&B, you get in for free.
Starting the year with a wardrobe refresh, Quince has you covered with luxe essentials that feel effortless and look polished. They're perfect for layering, mixing, and building a wardrobe that lasts. Their versatile styles make it easy to reach for them day after day. I don't know about you, but I've gotten to the point where I'm tired of wearing clothes that don't make me feel good and look good. I'm tired of going cheap when I could go upmarket, and even better, doing it with Quince where I don't have to pay extra for that benefit. It's sweater weather here in Northern California, and I'm wearing my Mongolian cashmere crewneck sweater today, which is oh so soft. Quince has all the staples covered, from soft Mongolian cashmere sweaters that look like designer pieces without the markup, to 100% silk tops and skirts for easy dressing up, to perfectly cut denim for everyday wear. Their wardrobe essentials are crafted to last season after season, and that is important to me. I'm looking for the clothes that I like to wear that don't break the bank, and Quince is giving me that. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Don't wait. Go to quince.com/traveler for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. This episode is sponsored by Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I'm not sure if you know, but before I retired, I was a director of engineering for a large bank/credit card company working on financial planning tools. And so I needed to know what was available. And Rocket Money was one of those tools that was doing things we weren't. With Rocket Money, you connect it to your bank accounts and it monitors your transactions. It looks for things that you are spending that are subscriptions. Have you ever had where you're paying for a streaming service and it's been a year since you've watched it? I hate that. And this is a tool that helps you fix that. Not only that, but when you discover that you're subscribed to something, you can often fix it in the Rocket Money app with just a few clicks. You don't have to pick up the phone and you don't have to call them. It also automatically categorizes your expenses, helps you keep track of them, and other cool stuff. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join rocketmoney.com/traveler. That's rocketmoney.com/traveler. rocketmoney.com/traveler. And thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. When your friends are making travel plans, are you the one they call? Do you live for planning the perfect trip, the thrill of comparing hotels, scoring that impossible reservation, piecing it all together to an unforgettable itinerary? You already think like a travel advisor, so why not just be one? Imagine if your love for planning vacations could actually become a source of income. With Fora, you get the training, tools, and insider access to turn your passion into real earnings as a travel advisor, so you can build a thriving part-time business on your terms, all alongside your job, family responsibilities, or other passions. Fora is a modern travel agency built for people who love to plan travel and help others travel well. Their tech platform, training, and community give you everything you need to turn a passion for travel planning into a flexible, meaningful source of income. Become a Fora travel advisor at foratravel.com/traveler. That's FORA travel.com/traveler. And make sure you tell them we sent you. foratravel.com/traveler. And thanks to Fora for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
So that was the end of the
Okay.
day. And go back to my B, and Noureddin would pick me up the next morning. And the second day was basically downtown Tunis, the old historic part. But before we got there, we went to the Bardo National Museum. And this museum is housed in the old Beys Palace. And Beys, Beys is the title of what you might say is their sultan for the country. So this is, the Sultan's former palace, and the museum's been there since about the late 1800s. It's considered the second richest museum on the African continent after the Egyptian Museum of Cairo, with all of its collections.
Wow.
And specifically renowned for, and this is where we come back to, probably the world's largest and finest collection of Roman, Catholic, and Arabic mosaics. So they've got all these, like I said, at the military cemetery, there's this mosaic map of the campaign. Here are the mosaics that they've recovered from various archaeological digs all throughout the country, both the Roman Catholic times and then, of course, Arabic times. Just colorful. One that impressed me the most was there is a mosaic of ocean life. It was like, if you're at Monterey Bay, since we both are familiar with that, and somebody gives you a chart of this is what's out in the bay. These are the types of fish. These are the types of lobsters or crabs or whatever you're going to find. This is a mosaic of ocean life, although they didn't have names on it, but all these different shapes and sizes and things like that. Really was actually impressive. So also the museum contains Roman statues. There are lots of artifacts from the Punic era. The Bey's living quarters, his palace rooms and things, have been restored. So there's his dining room, his bedroom, et cetera, like that, have all been restored. Couple last things that really stood out to me was they've also got an impressive collection of ancient coins. Except in this one exhibit was I'm just going to use the word, a hoard of gold coins that were found at altogether at an archaeological dig and I'll spell it for you, it's Chimtou, I think, Chimtou. In this batch of gold coins that was found and recovered from that archaeological site is in this museum in a case, and there is one silver coin. Hundreds of gold coins, one silver coin. I don't know. I thought that was rather interesting. And another thing I'll mention there is a Phoenician artifact. They had a Phoenician stone petroglyph. Now, we've talked, I know we had one previous episode with me about being in the Caribbean and seeing some of the petroglyphs in the Caribbean. And there's an uncanny resemblance of this Phoenician petroglyph to some of the ones that I saw in the Caribbean. These big eyes and oval heads and things. And I'm like going, one has to think, is it a possibility the Phoenicians got all the way across and shared something with them? Or did they come back from it? I don't know. It just, the resemblance to me was uncanny, but that's just me. So you'll spend most of the morning at the museum. You could do it in an hour or two or however long, but it's definitely worth a visit. And from there, my guide took me over to the Medina of Tunis, which is another World Heritage Site. And the Medina is basically the old historic Arab quarter, which includes the souk, which is the marketplace, and the Kasbah, which is the military fort. It was a walled city at one time. There are only two gates of the walled city still standing, Bab el-Bar and Bab Sudun. I'll come back to El-Bar here in a second. But it's walkable. There's no cars allowed, so there's just walkways, narrow streets. Some of them are covered, some of them aren't covered. I've been into other souks before, but I don't know. This one was just huge, in my opinion. And there's the merchants selling their crafts and trades. There's the food vendors, like the street food here and there, the smells of the street food. It was really a fun place to just walk around and get lost in. And yeah, you're going to be sore. At least I was after that day. put on a lot of steps going through that souk. And you can actually get lost pretty easily with all the different side streets and alleys and things like that.
Yeah.
But the artisans are there applying their craft. There's a hat that's like a fez that they have. It's a Tunisian chalhia, Chalhia. And we went to one shop there where they were making it and selling them there. And they're just craftsmen, whether they're working on silver or they're working on these hats. I will say that Tunisia has a lot of cats, stray cats everywhere. And particularly here in the souk, they're all over the place. They're friendly and they're not going to hurt you just running around. But there's cats lying on rugs, cats lying on silver platters here, there, everywhere. As a cat owner, it was fun to watch. But one corner of the Medina is, you might call the government, the central plaza. It has the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, specifically in the center of that. Off to one quarter is the Prime Minister's office, or what's called the Dar el Bay. There are other government offices, and the Kasbah are out within a block or so of each other at that one point. I did want to mention a little bit about food, since I am in the souk, and the aroma of food was pretty powerful, and particularly I'm probably getting there about lunchtime. It was one restaurant called Dar El Elama, Ellama restaurant. I had lamb. I had one of their dishes called was Merguez. It's basically a thin, spicy lamb sausage. Another dish I had was called Hindi, or it's known as the Sultan of Fruits. It's basically prickly pear cactus fruit, and it has lots of seeds in it. And having been familiar living with prickly pear here around my house and stuff like that, they're very sweet fruit, and it was really delicious. There's another item that you might find, not just the souk, but also throughout the country for a lunchtime thing. And they're basically a baguette sandwich called Cassie Croute, CASSE -CROUTE. And it's just a baguette sandwich. Unfortunately, somehow I ordered a veggie one. And it's great if you're vegetarian. I'm not going to knock it. It just wasn't my taste. But that's a sandwich you can pretty much find at the roadside there. Finishing off the day and leaving the souk, if you leave via the Bab el Bar gate, you're going to basically hit a road that goes to what they call the French Port. And this is a broad boulevard that's also at one point called Avenue Habib Bourguiba, Bourguiba. It's a wide avenue, boulevard, tree-lined center. At the far end, it has a fountain with a clock tower. It's basically the city's central thoroughfare. And it's the political, historic, and economic heart of Tunisia is there. You'll find the theater, the Catholic cathedral. It reminds me a little bit, if anybody's been to Buenos Aires and is familiar with the Avenida 9 de Julio, which is their big Buenos Aires big avenue. A little smaller than that as far as length, but it definitely gives you that impression. There's modern shops. I think there's an embassy or two, if I remember right, along that boulevard. But it's just a great boulevard to just, if you still have strength in your legs, to walk down. And then it was a walking day. Yeah. And then so I ended up that first day walking down that street and then heading back to my B&B.
And when you say heading back to your B&B, you're getting a ride from your tour guide?
Yes. Yep.
Rather than catching a cab. Okay.
Yeah. He not only drove, he drove very well. He was my guide. He pointed out everything. He translated. He introduced me to people, because there'd be people coming up and saying hi to him and stuff like that, which is really, again, like I said, it's nice to have someone like that. It just makes for a more enjoyable visit.
You mentioned that he drove very well. What is the style of driving in Tunis?
The right-hand side, if that's what you mean.
But I meant,
that's nothing crazy. I like to drive. I probably could have rented a car and driven it myself. My Arabic is very limited. However, if I'd known they were more into French after 6.5 years in elementary school and junior high, I might have gotten by a lot better. But I don't think I would have had the cultural experience, as I said, with him and pointing out the foods. telling me the different craftsmanship and stuff like that. So I definitely think it's worth it. And that can be for any country you go to or any place.
Sure.
And like I said, I've used them in other places, and it's always been enjoyable and well worth it. So then, and he came back and picked me up for my final day. And if I didn't mention, he did pick me up at the airport when I arrived. And on the last day, he didn't take me back to the airport, but he did have a friend of his come get me and take me to the airport because he actually had other tourists coming in. On the final day, we drove south of Tunis, and we went down to the El Jim World Heritage Site. It's about a 3-hour drive down a motorway and off the coast a bit. This is the second largest Roman Colosseum in the world. It was built in about the 200 ADs. Colosseum, games, gladiators. There's animal cages below the floor that you can walk down into. It says that it had a capacity of 35,000 spectators. It's still mostly intact. Again, all made out of stone. You get up top, you got a beautiful view. They say that why this was such a huge thing was because this was a rich community back in Roman days. The olive oil exports from there made for wealthy inhabitants. And I should mention that driving down there, the orchards, olive groves are pretty prominent on both sides of the highway heading down that way. So I can see where olive oil being a form of currency to some extent, I think in the Roman times, that it made them rich so they could build a huge Colosseum that they did. And you can explore through that and walk around everywhere. I will mention, though, that just before we got to the Colosseum, there was a police checkpoint. And so they were basically checking vehicles that their vehicle papers were in order. You don't normally think of it, and it was a surprise to me where everybody stopped and there's police and they're just asking everybody for their papers. It's like, wasn't really expecting that. But no big deal, just something that they do. So after we spent several hours there, we drove back up, and he knew that I wanted to check out one of the national parks. So there's a national park just on the south side of the Bay of Tunis, southeast of Tunis city itself, called Boukourine National Park, Boukourine. I can't say that I was impressed. I think it's more of a protected area because of its watershed for arid Tunis. They certainly had trails. The highest peak in the park had a large radio tower complex, which is not something you normally see in what we think of as a national park. The visitor center, when I was there, was under construction, but we were able to hike a trail or two and got out to a viewpoint that overlooked the city of Tunis and, of course, the Bay of Tunis across to Carthage. It was a great view. We had beautiful weather. It was fairly warm in October when I was there, not terribly hot. I think they're above the equator, so that would still be fall for them. But it's a Mediterranean climate. All through there's unless you're in the middle of the souk, you're going to have Mediterranean breezes coming off the bay. It was comfortable. Of course, that's somebody coming from the desert. So it might not be for other people. So that was the end of the last day there. I want to mention a couple of the other foods just because I think there's some other people who are foodies like me. The national dish is basically, it's couscous with dorado, and that's a fish. I don't know if there's a specific name for it, but they also have something called harissa, Harissa. It's a chili, a red chili paste that you can get on their different dishes. They have a pastry called a brick, B-R-I-K or B-R-E-E-K, depending. It's basically egg filled with different fillings. And you're probably going to be offered mint tea throughout the area and places. And I'm not a big tea drinker, but it was certainly worth it. But as we were saying, being there in October, the mornings are a little cool. You might want a light jacket, but of course, it certainly warms up for the day. In comparison to here in California, Tunis is on the Greenwich Mean Time. So there's an 8-hour difference between there and here at home. And don't forget to be prepared for the call to prayer 5 times a day, starting at 5 a.m.
Yes.
So I've been in other Muslim countries where it's like, oh yeah, that's right. But it's 5 a.m. But anyways,
Yep.
and just to give you an idea, that they have Tunisian dinars, and there's about 3 dinars per US dollar. At least when I was there, was the exchange rate. And I was also
Yeah.
surprised to find out that along the coast between Tunis and El Jem is a Hard Rock Cafe. So, you know, yeah, you think of Tunisia. I was very impressed with it, and then you find a Hard Rock Cafe. I guess they're not too far off from the other world.
You're not
So,
that far off the beaten path, is what you're saying?
yeah, you really. Although that Hard Rock Cafe was out to me in the middle of what? Where is this? And how? And you would have thought it was like in Tunis,
That's funny.
and it's not. But I realized that where it was at was a beach resort community. I think a lot of people who will go to that portion of the coast there, and that's actually right on the Mediterranean Sea, directly across from Malta. And that's actually where the other international airport is too. It's not far away from that little community. So
Okay.
it's in the town of Sousse, Sousse. That makes sense. That's probably where people are just going there to want to be along a Mediterranean beach, could fly into that other airport directly and not have too far to travel. So,
And you did fly from here, because I know you were doing this along with Malta, and I don't remember what else. You did fly in and
yeah,
out rather than taking a ferry or something.
I flew from the States via Frankfurt on Lufthansa
Okay.
into Carthage Airport. And then I actually took Tunisian Air across to Malta, just a short flight. And then I went to the south of France after Malta. But I still had to go back up to Frankfurt and drop back down to Nice Airport.
Got it. Yeah. No, I'd say Malta is something like 100 to 150 miles from there. So you're pretty close.
Yeah, you're really close, which can make it for nice to put the two of them together, unless you
Yeah.
want to do Sicily or something like that. But
Also
and
close.
again,
Yep, exactly.
yeah, Tunis is mostly an arid country, except for the area around Tunis and down to El Jem. You're going to be out in the deserts.
Excellent. It sounds like you've wrapped up your itinerary. Anything else that
Yep.
people need to know before they go to Tunis or Tunisia?
No, I think I've covered some of the other things, dishes and time change and stuff.
Okay.
So hopefully that'll help them.
Before we get to our usual wrap
Hmm?
up questions, what surprised you? What do you wish you'd known before you went?
Just that it was so comfortable. It's
Okay.
North Africa. It's smack
Yep.
between Algeria and Libya, and with all the things that are going on there. And then here's this beautiful, I'll just say beautiful country, Tunisia.
To me, it
The,
sounded a lot like visiting Morocco in terms
yeah,
of comfort level, familiarization, culture.
not having been there, yes, but having listened to you going to Morocco, I would certainly say that. You don't think of
Okay.
it too much other than you call the prayer 5 times a day. You really don't think of it too much as an Arab country.
Excellent. As we get to the wrap up questions, you're standing in the prettiest spot that you saw in Tunisia. Where are you standing, and what are you looking at?
I would have to say it's from my penthouse at the B&B. My room there at sunset, overlooking the
Okay.
ancient city of Carthage, the Gulf of Tunis. And if I didn't mention it, there was a mosque right next door. The
Okay.
call to prayer, it echoes across, and you've got all the other different
Yeah.
calls to prayer going on at the same time at the sunset. It's just, you're like going, wow, I'm really here.
Yeah, I don't know if people who haven't been to a Muslim country, you can usually hear multiple different mosques because they are amplifying this call to prayer. And so you get almost call response from the different mosques being off by a little bit, doing the same call to prayer, but in different voices and a little different timing. Excellent. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Tunis.
I saved this. Apparently, at the national park, you're not allowed to take photographs.
Huh.
Now, having gone there and having a native as my guide goes up to the security guard, there's this big security gate to get in this parking lot, and then you have to go through that to hike in. And apparently, and he could not understand why. And like I said, he's native. He was pointing to the camera and saying no. So I'm not 100% sure. I was asking Nordine, I said, does that mean he doesn't have a picture of himself, or he doesn't? He says, he's very clear. There's no photos allowed in the national park. But being that I had a local guide, he convinced him that we were just going to go to the viewpoint and get a selfie at the viewpoint with Tunis in the background. So we went up there and got that one photo. But yeah, and I've got a photo of the regulatory signs. It's in Arabic and French. And like I said, I'm a little better at French than I am anything else. And they have all the usual, what we in the States call the federal recreational symbols, like no littering with a red slash across it, no dogs with a red slash across it. I was looking at those 7 or so across the bottom. There was nothing there with a camera with a red slash on it. But he was saying if it's there, it's the regulations. You cannot. And so Nordine was going like, I don't know what to tell you. So yes,
interesting.
Only in Tunisia can you not take a photo in a national park.
That is unusual. And if you had to summarize Tunis in 3 words, what 3 words would you pick?
Ancient, friendly, and arid.
Excellent. Our guest debate has been Jeff Ohlfs. Jeff, thanks so much for coming back on the show and telling us about your newfound love for Tunis.
My pleasure, Chris. Always happy to share some time with you.
Now that the holidays are over, you might be feeling like you've got a big spending hangover. The drinks, the holiday foods, the gifts, it all adds up. Luckily, Mint Mobile is here to help you cut back on overspending on wireless this January with 50% off unlimited premium wireless. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network, possibly the network you're paying more for right now. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your own phone number along with all your existing contacts. If you could get the same coverage, why would you pay more? This January, quit overspending on wireless with 50% off unlimited premium wireless. Plans start at $15 a month at mintmobile.com/traveler. That's mintmobile.com/traveler. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for a 12 months plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra, initial plan terms only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable devices required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com. And thanks to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Kaylee Cuoco and Sam Claflin star in the MGM Plus original series, Vanished. When the man Alice loves disappears on a train to the south of France, every romantic memory becomes evidence. Every intimate detail, a potential threat. She thought she knew everything about him, but she may not even know his real name. 4-part thriller Vanished premieres February 1st on MGM Plus. Finding the truth is a dangerous affair.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also they're a literal vampire. And suddenly my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Thanks to Jeff, and also thanks to patrons of the show, of which Jeff is one. One thing that's going to be different going forward with patrons of the show, starting about 2 months after this episode comes out, is I had a suggestion from my daughter that I ask patrons of the show for questions about destinations before those episodes record. And so that's going to be a new feature of being a patron of the show. If you're interested in learning more, go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. I am still looking for 2 more people to join me in Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan in May. Please do. You can go to amateurtraveler.com/trips to learn more, or just drop me an email, chris2x@gmail.com. With that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. Again, if you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.